3.19 PTU, the Fury and the Fury MX are sitting right on the floor in the test server. Get on out there. It's open to all backers. Throughout this video, I talk about the Fury MX, and I also lead into how you can get on the PTU yourself. So please subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to my long subscribers. Let's get right into it. So we have a rare opportunity here. I was chatting with a few of these kind folks, and they're all having some fun right now, speculating over these parasite fighters that do not have a quantum drive. And one fella that's arguing over it does have a quantum drive, even though we can see it doesn't. There's not a lot of hidden stuff on this ship. The modules are actually like just literally in the sides of it. And it's other smaller ships that tend to be of this class, just like this one, do not have a lot of things that are hidden. We can go right inside and we can see all the different modules and equipment inside. And I'm going to give you a spoiler here. It is not that great, the equipment-wise. But I don't think that's kind of the point, is it? I mean, these modules are going to be cheap. This is going to be a very affordable ship. I think some people will throw around the idea of this being an LTI token. And I think that's kind of what some people probably will do. Have their fun with it. Carry this around on ships that normally could not carry a snub. And have a good time. There's a lot of ships that can do some really interesting things with this type of craft. I look at the gun version here that has the 4 turrets. And I gotta say, I'm pretty interested in this Fury. I could see a couple of these, but, you know, especially a buy-in game, for sure. I could see orgs handing these out like crazy. And I could see that, you know, first of all, I just want to point out one nice thing. I like that a lot of these buttons are available. If you've seen the previews from CIG themselves, you've seen that one of them has a shield that goes over the front. It seems like a tactical shield system. This does not have that. So this system is literally just, this is the gun truck. You can see it has a full HUD. And actually, one of the interesting things is the MFD situation. I know there's an MFD. I've seen somebody put it up. And, you know me, I like trying to find where the buttons are. Let's power it back on. So power it on. Open pilot canopy. Either the buttons aren't available yet, or I'm just not zoomed in enough. Self-destruct button. Let's try to avoid that. Obviously, I'm sure that's disengaged for this. It's a little tiny for show one there. But this HUD should drop. But this is what we're dealing with here. I'm going to hop out because I'm sure one of these people would love to get in. But pretty interesting ship. You can see your guns right here. It has a lot of the action of the Ares, Inferno, and Ion. And I think something small like this, it's almost like some people have compared it to a quad turret on a larger ship. And I'm inclined to agree. It seems like a very maneuverable quad turret that can spin around at will on its own. And I mean, I'm looking at those weapon systems and I'm liking what I'm seeing. So there's 4 size 2s on board. And it comes with 4 Badgers, but we'll see. I think there'll be some really interesting builds around this thing. Size 2s, they're not going to be pea shooters, but they're not going to be the most amazing weapon systems. I would be very nervous about running ballistics on this thing because you're already running around with no quantum drive. So you're already severely at a disadvantage the minute you undock, so to speak, and get into combat. I think ballistics would be a mistake, but we'll see. And then I'm looking at the missile systems, and I would say that with this type of missile rack, you got 4 size 2 missiles on board, and you can change these. They're not bespoke or anything. You can change them with other size 2 missiles. So you've got that volley of missiles to kind of get you in the fight, and then also your 4 size 2 turrets to really get some stuff done. And you're not going to be the fastest thing in the fleet, but like you're spinning to win on this thing really well. It's a shame you can't rent the dang thing. Believe me, I've tried. I crawled on top of it, crawled around it, checked every module bay, but no good. So this is the Mirai Fury, or MISC Fury, if you want to use the name of the actual main company that's producing these. Mirai is more of like a carried, sorry, advertising type name. And then this is the missile variant of it. You're looking at the Mirai Fury MX. So you can see here it lists itself as a Snub bomber. So there's all sorts of discussion about this Xi'an technology that uses the 12 mount missile systems. Basically, instead of getting 4 size 2 missiles, it gets 12. But you might notice something interesting about this ship. The minute it runs out of its size 2, and also there's a bunch of size 1 sneaking in there. You can see those size 1 marksmans there. There's 8 of those. The minute all these missiles unload, this ship is basically dead in the water. So this is like it's a lot like the Ares series, honestly. The Ares Inferno is an incredible wow factor ballistic system with limited ammunition, but once it runs out, it needs to return to base, so to speak. Although that does have a quantum drive. It has a lot more ammo than this thing. But still, it's the same concept compared to its sister, the Ares Ion, which would be comparable to this Mirai Fury, the non-MX variant, that has the 4 cannons on board. This has a lot more staying power. However, size 2 missiles get into the range of, they are very scary creatures. And you have like a critical mass of missile systems here. When you're talking about running 8 size 2s, and then you also have all those size 1s, you can do some very interesting things. Apologies, 12 size 2s. Apologies, 12 size 2s. I'm looking at the looking at the arms of this thing. It's pretty cool to be able to check these things out live. Let me see if I can get in there. I've been trying to not be a glutton because there's a lot of people. These are all players. Word got out quick. But power systems, I don't see a lot of buttons again. I know. And here is the main event. So this shielding system has like these weird orb things. A lot of us are speculating that this will be like an advanced targeting package for the missile systems, and it would be assumed that this thing has a little more damage reduction, a little more armor. Right now, damage reduction, eventually armor on this system. It does not appear that blast shield is on the Fury, the regular Fury over there. That seems to be an MX variant only item. You can see your missile systems, so this is going to be quite a light show when this thing goes off. But it is an interesting ship because it's a volley ship. After this drops all its missiles, let me get out. After it drops all its missiles, it brings up the interesting prospect of being stuck out there with no quantum drive, with no ammunition, no weapons systems to fight with on a fighter. So a snub fighter like this, when it's set up, could be very interesting and could be very dangerous. Also, another interesting side note is these are in its scrunched up configuration, I'll call it. It's not deployed configuration, is a fairer argument. So what I would say is that keep that in mind. So when it's stored on a ship, this is what it'll look like. When it's stored in a warehouse, this is what you'd pack it away at. Like an organization would have stacks of these things. These are going to be dime a dozen, but that's a good thing. When this thing deploys to take off, these arms fold outwards, a lot like a TIE fighter. And then these engines, these VTOL style, like spinny engines, the Xi'an Tech style engines, those are going to basically fold out with it. She's standing on an engine. Thank goodness the thing doesn't fire up. But those arms unfold quite a bit. Okay, did another recording. Gonna keep going. So both of them use the word short-range space combat, and I think that's a very effective thing. One of the things that I've been thinking about with the Fury MX, is that all of those size 1 missiles, I would start the engagement firing those. and force the enemy to deploy a lot of chaff and flares, basically be spamming the key to get that out of the way. So force your enemy, especially in a small or a medium class vessel, to blow all of their defenses, their automated defenses, their automated protective distribution things that they press on those smaller missiles. And then you chuck the stinging load of size 2s. I also think that this one right here is warming up to me for Outpost Defense. Those size 2s have a reasonable range. And I mean, unless they adjust their range and atmo more in the future, this thing's quite a winner if you have the ability to rearm and resupply it. So resupply it with fuel, regular fuel, hydrogen, and then also resupply it with all of its missile systems. So when I said earlier, putting a stack of these in a warehouse, putting a stack of these on a ship, I would also say put a stack of these in a warehouse that's at an outpost. It's like the final vision, and be able to quickly grab a tractor beam ship or maybe a mule or something like that can move this in the future. Whatever technology we have to be able to quickly deploy these or directly deploy them at a pad. This is going to be like a snub craft, so you can deploy these at extra small locations. Also, side note, these should be deployable at the Platinum Bay, at outposts that only have like the ability to spawn vehicles, as they say, but they can spawn 100 eyes. Now, this thing doesn't have quantum, so it's not going to get you out of dodge, and that other than putting around, but it's still going to be very useful. And if you're meeting your friends, and in the future when you can spawn in places that are not planetary landing locations, that are not large space stations, these type of ships would be nice to be able to hop on board with, so you have your own ride out of there. So when you reach your destination, you can pitch into the fight. Once again, though, with this one especially, you have to bring extra missiles in order for this thing to be sustainable. Whereas this one, if you have the correct weapons package, you can just keep you can blow through your 4 size 2s, but then you have 4 cannons to work with. So I think this one's more of a sustainment practical ship, and this one is more of a large organizations that have that ability to pack the extra weapon systems, that have the ability to sustain these specific weapon systems, and have the training to teach people not to blow the wrong missiles, like sheep chucking size 2s at the wrong time, and they just basically are chaff and flare bait, and they don't get the job done, and then they're stuck with minuscule size 1s to try to take down a medium class ship that'll eviscerate them eventually. So that's my thoughts on these two ships. They both have pretty weak module packages. As I mentioned, I think before, they should have excellent maneuverability. But of course, that is countered by the fact that they are rather small. They are reasonably squishy with a total hit points of about 6,600 if that stays. Remember, the PTU can change like water, but we're talking about 220 ms of speed. We're talking about 6,600 total hit points with pretty reasonable damage resistances. These things are built to be repairable, it looks like, with reasonable armor stats, like damage reduction stats. You got a single size 1 shield. You have a single size 1 power plant, para size 1 coolers, which will become very important for the cannon-based variant. Yeah, there's not too much to say about these rather exciting ships. It goes without saying, but you can only fit 1 person on board. I mean, it goes without saying. And I'm going to state the obvious here. You do have atmo inside when you sit. So that is nice too. And remember, the MX has the downside of only having missiles, but it does have that blast shield. I also do like the pod configuration for a smaller ship like this. It really doesn't matter if that was looking like an armored thing or not. I think it's interesting that MISC has chosen to have great visibility, because MISC is normally known for having like a visor style of visibility. Even on this the Freelancer MIS, the missile variant, these big windows are not on most of the other variants. And I mean, the Starfarer is another example of the classic visor MISC style, where usually the pilots are sitting and the co-pilot seats are seated back such a way it's actually kind of difficult to see out of that visor. You really have to hit F4 and just kind of sit in third person view to really go. It seems like MISC is more going back to the Reliance series. I don't think this is a coincidence. This is on the floor right now, right near these brand new Mirais. These are kind of bridging the gap between traditional MISC and their Xi'an partnerships, which is pretty cool. So, yeah. By the way, I have the audio muted right now. There is a wonderful amount of chatting going on. However, people keep saying some pretty naughty things once in a while, and one of the guys kept ranting about how this thing should have a quantum drive. So I had to drop that for the video. So I highly encourage you to come out yourself, download the PTU for 3.19 PTU. There's nothing special to get in here. Remember that as you go through the PTU process of changing it over, you do not have to re-download the whole game. You can take your live folder, copy it into the PTU folder, which is in the same directory, one folder up, then you'll find the PTU folder, and just paste in your live folders. That will save you 70 gigs or so of downloading. And yeah, you do need the storage space, but you don't have to re-download the whole game yet again. And then simply go into the launcher and hit update. And while you're waiting for that to update, go onto the website and hit copy account to PTU inside your My Hangar section of the website. So that's My Hangar in the top right. And then you go to settings and then you hit the big green button that says on the left side that says copy account to PTU. So that's the entire process of getting to where I'm at. And I am in Area 18 at the Brevik Center. There is a tram directly to here. You do not need any like special passcode or anything. Just get on the PTU and come on over here. It's kind of bittersweet seeing the Hercules these years during these events, because there was a Hercules C2 inside the Galactic Gear preview about 2 years ago, I think now, when the Hercules were just being launched for the IAE events. And they prominently had the C2 where literally Jax McCleary and Jimmy were driving straight through the middle of their production area, and both doors were open, and they were showing off just how big the Hercules was inside. They had all sorts of tables for their interviews and for the ship show and everything else, and their production people and editing bays were all in here. It's kind of interesting to see the convention center finally having Hercules, finally being able to sustain these larger ships in their true size, in their true scale. It's pretty awesome. Just a little tidbit that kind of made me laugh a little bit when I first saw them in here. So yeah. So back to the Ares series. I talked about that before, but this is the Ares Inferno. And with the Ares Inferno, you have that giant size 7 cannon with limited ammunition due to the size of the ship. And remember, size 7 ammo is pretty big. Versus the Ion that can sustain itself, although it does obviously have power. If you, overclock and everything, it does consume a lot of power to run that system and run its shields at the same time. So the Ion is sustainable, though. Different beast for different situations. The Ion is ideal for sustainment, and it does remind me quite a lot of the Fury and the Fury MX, where one is a burst weapon system, and the other one is able to hold together and sustain. This is the hologram room, so I'm pretty excited to see if there's anything interesting in here. And I am not disappointed. Here's the Spirit series in hologram. It's not as good as them being on the sales floor, but this is the A1 specifically. So this is the mid-range A1 bomber with the size 5 bombs. So it has like two aisles of, it's like one aisle, but 2 racks of bombs inside that one aisle. Let's take a look at the bottom here. You can see the bomb bay doors right here. These open, and then the bombs vertically drop out of here. Goes without saying, but bombs are ideal for gravity drops they are less than ideal for space. People have speculated, though, being able to do like some type of bomb drop where you have high velocity forward, then spin the ship, then open up the doors and release the bombs and hope they continue flying forward for the best. I don't know how accurate that's going to be, but it's very interesting ideas. Other people have speculated about, well, can we use them on asteroids with limited capacity of gravity, like Levski or somewhere like that? And it brings up some interesting topics. I'm sure that's going to be broached in the future. But for now, that's a wonderful shot of the A1. And here's another A1. Can tell because it's got the little bomb bay doors. It's kind of like when you catch crabs. You don't know if they're male or female crabs, because down in Maryland, that changes the rules on them. At least it used to, if I remember right. Crusader Industries, its usual commitment to excellence in the civilian market, with the A1 Spirit, a mid-sized starship equipped as a light bomber, but packing enough versatility to tackle multiple roles and unpredictable jobs. I do agree. A whole bunch of size 5 bombs can change the predictability aspect. It looks like there's another A1 here, which is kind of weird. Now wait a minute. Is this an A1? I don't think this is an A1. Is this a C1? So the speculation was the A1 would get done quickly, then the C1, or vice versa, where the C1 would be the next one done. And then the E1, unfortunately, due to its unique shape and its requirement for the Mix Master, a special system they need to get done for the Starliner, and they're using as the E1 as a test bed for, would be a little more difficult for them to run and arrange. Does that look like a gun turret? That's the question. If this is a gun turret, and that is probably not a C1, because that has a tractor beam up there. On a rail like that. Oh, it is an A1. Okay. There's the door. Dang. Okay, I strongly think this is a placeholder. There's no way that's going to be the A1 again. This looks like it's more finished. That just looks like a copy-paste. But yeah. Okay. I was hoping just the little placard was wrong and it was a different Spirit variant. As an E1 owner, I'm more excited about the E1 than the other variants, but I do welcome multiple. I love all the different styles of weird and wonderful ships. That is bizarre. They opened up a whole secondary room, Hall 2, just for the MSR? Does that sound right? Let's find out. So, the way these platforms are put together at the Brevik and also at Orison, they're kind of frustrating to me. I have one major complaint about these halls, is that even though they're in different places, once you're inside, they feel very close to each other on the styling. And that's, you know, I know that might not be fair, I don't know, but it just feels like they do nicer work every year on the style, but it feels like this could have... The nice improvements would be anywhere, if that makes sense. Like, the convention center doesn't matter because it's like the same new improvements are added, and it just feels like the same kind of place. I wish there was a little more variability in the styling of the places. One thing that would be cool is local flair, like having like little exhibits or something. I think of, goodness, the Gaylord Hotel series. They have, like, these giant enclosed hotels that have, like, biospheres inside of them. They have the Opryland, they got the Palm, they got all these different ones. And no, I'm not sponsored in any way. I'm not making a dime off these videos. I'm just saying they're very nice. And that would be kind of cool to see maybe a terrestrial-style one for Orison. And for Hurston, it would be interesting if it was, like, built out of, like, old industrial caves and stuff. Like, just different. Very, very different, you know? Like the historical parts, the oldest parts of Loreville, I could see they kept putting it through. Like this is like the rock solid, you know, the first residents that worked hard and served the family of Hurston Dynamics very well. I could see that. I mean, really like these little stories and adventures that really have, and the place has a taste of like what the company feels like. So we are now on board Ash's favorite ship, the MSR, the Mercury Star Runner. Also the Star of the Division series. I do not have a flashlight. There's the engineering room. I could turn on the lights technically too. Here is the totally secret, I swear, bro, room. I think the worst kept secret in the history of secrets. But it is still extremely cool. I mean, you gotta give it credit. It is pretty dang neat. They did some lighting work in here, it looks like. Okay, I might be wrong, but that reminds me of the original. That effect where the light's going through the fan while the fan's moving, which is very cool. I've heard people complain about this. The tunnels are a little too silly, a little too role play, but that's fun. I think there should be maybe a bit less of them, or maybe just make them a little more practical. Like if you made them a little deeper so they were like proper floors, where I'm not like crawling through these. Interesting. There is a hatch on the floor, I think. It's a shame. One of the big complaints with the MSR is that, and I think they're working to redesign it, is it only has one entry and exit point. And the argument is, well, you can camp the ship way too easy, you know, and also, like, if that door fails, you're stuck in here, basically. It would be nice if one of these hatches, that would be an easy way to sort this out. It's like one of these hatches in the sneaky corridors and this is like the shielded secret smuggling department. It would be neat to see if in there was one of the exits. Or, like the Corsair does, put it on the roof. Be interesting. Still, kind of fascinating to see two MSRs taking up a whole an entire hall, which is a sub-hall of the entire event. Sometimes CIG does this to hide a major new ship or something like that. I do not think that's the case. They're already launching two. I mean, the MISC Fury and the MISC Fury MX are technically new ships. Both of them are snub fighters, but they are new ships. Also, by the way, that's a tradition of CIG to release smaller new ships and vehicle concepts or straight to flyables. It looks like in this case they might even be STFs. I think they are, which means like you'll be able to procure them and fly them on day one, or come to the hall and rent them for 0 UEC, just like the rest of these ships. You can absolutely rent and go fly for fun and see if it's your style, see if it'll fit in your ship. I should talk about that. So there is a major change inside. As I casually just run past an F8A from the 999 Squadron with a nice livery, the Reckless Squadron. One of the interesting things about these ships is that these two right here represent a change in what ships can be carriers and cannot be. Because when these things are flat packed into small size, they don't take up a lot of space. But it's just a question of what size tractor beam is going to be needed to move these things. Because when you do unfold them, these are going to jump out a little bit, and out and up and out and down. So unfortunately, that means that the ship, which you can't do when it's sitting on the sales floor, this ship is going to take up too much space unless you tractor beam it over. It's that simple. So I really strongly caution these fucking people. I strongly caution. I do strongly caution to keep that in mind. when you see some very interesting pictures floating around Reddit, floating around Spectrum, floating around on different Discords, of packing like a dozen of these things in a C2 Herc, keep in mind that they're going to need to open up to take off. Unless there is a tractor beam, like a handheld, like a tier 2 tractor beam, or a ship that has a tractor beam that can point inside of it and physically move this thing, then let it deploy when it's cleared, well clear of the other bunch of Mirai. Apologies, MISC Fury. They've spent a couple weeks pounding into our heads that there's a brand new brand through MISC called Mirai. It's even called the Mirai the Fury. But when you go up to it and on the sales floor and everything, it's the MISC Fury. Yeah, that's kind of an interesting side note. They're starting to be like a little offerings. People are just dropping random stuff, like all their collection. Oh, goodness. And then this is with the blast shield down on the MISC Fury MX, the missile variant. And like I said, I think these little pod things, I don't think they're shield emitters. Feed, yeah. I guess that they were going to be like video feeds that can change it. So you have those all around the front. And then, like he just showed, you can close and open this thing. So you can have the normal style and also like that one. And then also it has this. If I was to venture a guess, this one will be, people will be like saying this is going to be worth more. I think the Fury MX variant here is going to sell okay. I think the Fury is going to be cheaper, and if people that are thinking of in the future this might be an LTI token, they're going to lean more towards this one. Both of these can be CCU'd. Both of these, with Warbond at least, will be lifetime insurance, as we've seen every single major sale when they make these large announcements of ships. Very interesting, to say the least. I think that's where I'm going to end this one. I thought I was going to have like practically a PowerPoint presentation that I was going to go through for these, but I think this is way more cool. Being able to just hang out with people while they're checking out the ship. I wish I could keep the audio on, but people kept cursing, and I'm not going to try to tell them not to. I mean, it's their time too to enjoy these, checking out these new events and checking out the PTU. And at the end of the day, we're all in this community together. It's my video. It's my small part of this. So, like I said, get out here, have some fun, check out these new ships, if you possibly can. And if you run into any bugs, be sure to file them with the Issue Council. Oh, where's my manners? I am wondering. Let's get the FPS counter up. Apologies for that. So inside the hall, near the Furies, I am getting, looks like in the 40s. Looks like my FPS is around 40s. Reminder, I'm running a 7800 X3D, 64 gigs of RAM running at 6,000 speed. I have an X670 motherboard, and the unfortunate note of this is I am running a 2080 that's heavily overclocked, but it's still at the end of the day just a vanilla 2080 with a bunch of cooling added to it by Asus. So it's just a 2080. It's been tuned up. One other side note, I had a question in the last video, and I wanted to recognize that. The resolution I'm running at is 1440p. I record at raw resolution, so whatever the speed I'm getting is what it records at a 70 megabit per second bit rate. To be honest, just for those who are interested in that, that seems to be treating me well. And then when it actually gets bumped up, it goes to 1080p, 60 frames per second. I've had issues trying to run it higher. I think it's just because these are, they're already pretty heavy videos. And to be honest, if I was doing cinematics like Gemini or other cinematographers that I know, like Ash and her crew, maybe I'd consider 4K or something like that. But at the end of the day, I don't even have 4K monitors. But yeah, 1440p is running for me at 48 FPS with my build. And you can see the server FPS is a healthy 11, and it's jumping between 10, 12, and 11. The average there you can see is around 11 something. So yeah, server's very responsive. FPS that I'm carrying locally is pretty high. I'm very pleased. I'll add this as an extra side note before I finally conclude. Sylvan from the CIG server engine team Sylvan pointed out that there was some changes to the character models, so it was much easier for them to render out and load in. So as they're coming in and out, as my understanding, as players move around, it will not tank your FPS as much. And I'm sure this is a great test for the whole team over there at the CIG engine team for their work. And of course, plushies and picos. And Finleys. All right, I'm out. Y'all have a great night.